Hey everybody, my name's Steve. I'm one of the API developers here at SkySiv in Sydney, Australia. We've created an NPM package for JavaScript, which I'm going to run through in this video. And this is to help you create models and interact with the API on a much easier level than we've traditionally done. So to start with, we're just going to get VS Code. If you haven't got this text editor and you're new to coding, it's probably the best one you can get. It's just feature rich and makes coding a lot easier. So what we'll do is, if you start it up, you'll get a welcome window. You can just close that. I've created a folder here on the desktop called npm demo. So I'm just going to grab that and then drop it in here. And now I've got a project here. So I'll close that window again. If we're on this tab here, you can right click a new file and we'll just call it index.js. And now we've got a JavaScript file here. If you haven't installed Node.js already, you'll need to do that. So just go to Google, search Node.js download, and download the right one. When you have that, if you open up the terminal at the bottom, which you go to here, you can type in node-v and you should get a version number back. So that's how you know that it's been installed correctly. So let's just start by checking this out. We can type in console log and just put Skysiv. And if we come down here, we can go node index.js and we get that print back out. So we know that's working. So the first thing we want to do is turn this project into, or initialize npm in this project. So npm is Node Package Manager. It's kind of like a open source library of code snippets that everyone can use, and it just saves people rewriting code. So to do that, we'll just come down into here. If you've installed Node.js recently, then npm will be included in that. Otherwise, you might need to include the terminal tools separately. So we can come down here, just check the directory you're in is npm demo, and then go npm init. And we're just going to put -y, which is an option, meaning answer yes to all the questions that you're about to ask me. So it'll then create this. So the questions it usually asks what it fills out in here. So now you have the package JSON, and that just keeps track of what dependencies your project needs to run. So if you open the package JSON, just double click that to make it stay open. If we come down here and say npm install Skysiv, you'll see dependencies get added. So now we've got Skysiv as a dependency in our project. So if we come back over to index, we can start using it. So we can say const Skysiv equals require and get the Skysiv package. So that's it. The first thing we want to do is create an instance of a Skysiv model and API object. Now, the API object is what we, let's jump into the docs. Actually, I've got it over here. If you come to Skysiv API v3, the request object, what we typically call the API object, is the entire payload that you send to us through the API. And inside this, it includes an auth key, an options key, and a functions key. So that would look something like this. The auth key is an object of your credentials. Options are just a few other options that you might want to specify how things behave, and we'll add more to this as we further build it out. And functions is an array of functions you want to run and in the specified order. So first thing we have is auth has a username, a key, and a session ID. We'll just use the username and key. If you want to learn about the session ID, just have a read up here. The other one, options, there's only two properties available in options at the moment. We'll probably use validate input. It defaults to true, but I'll just add it in anyway to show you how it works. So let's go back over here and create the instance of the model. So this is kind of just sort of creates like a scaffolding of an S3D model for us. So we can say const model is equal to Skysiv.model. Now, because we're in JavaScript, we're going to have to use the new keyword, and that says we've created a new model. So when we open the parentheses, we've included JS docs through the entire package, so you get good suggestions. So if we open up a quote, you can see metric, and I'm going to use metric for this one. You can also set the axis of the model, so I might do that as well here. We'll use the z-axis for the sake of switching things up. So then we might want to create an API object, which we'll just call AO, and we'll equal that to new SkyCiv.API object. So you can see a few things we've made available at the top level of that SkyCiv namespace. So just the common ones that people are going to be using mostly is API object and model. There's also these separate functions which were here earlier, which we've left there for now. Although I would recommend just using the API object, as the request methods are now a method of the API object as well. So we'll go SkyCiv API object, open and close parentheses. You can see it doesn't take anything. And that's now our model and API object. So let's just start with the API object and fill out the credentials. So we'll go API object dot auth. You can see all these suggestions, making it super easy. Username, and we'll equal that to your SkySiv login. So for me, Steve Richardson at skysiv.com, and then come down here and we're going to want key, and we'll take that. So you just need to go over to S3D. If you go to your dashboard, you can go to account settings, then go to API access and get your key from here. And we'll just paste that in. So that is the auth handle. Let's just put a comment there, set auth, and then we'll have set options, and we'll say API object.options.response data only and validate input. So we're saying we'll use validate input and equal that to true. So this means that when you send us your API object, we'll run it through our validator to check that all the inputs are correct. Now, the validator is very quick. So if you didn't use the validator and there was something wrong, then you'll probably get the same response message as an error, but it might take 10 or 20 seconds versus almost instantly with the validator. So it's definitely worth having this on, which I think it does default to true now. So if you wanted to turn it off, you can as well, in the same way that we've just done there. So next thing you'd want to do is add your functions. So these are SkySiv functions. So we'll go AO functions.add, and then we can choose one of the functions. So if I open a quote here, then we can probably start with a session start as usual, and then include any arguments that need to go into here. So session start, one might be keep open. That's a parameter of session start. In future, I'll add functions so that it prompts you for these parameters, but for now, you just got to include it as an object. You can get these parameters through the docs. So keep open, and we'll say false because I'm just going to make one call and I don't need to keep going back to that same session. After we do that, we're going to set the model. Now, we haven't created the model yet, but we will do that soon. We'll just get these ready, and we'll say set model. Model set, there it is. And same deal, if we go to the docs and we had a look at, let's go to functions here. If you go to S3D model set, it'll take you down to the S3D model and shows you that the arguments are S3D model. So take that, place that in our objects and set that to our model. So the model, you can either send in model or model get. It'll recognize if you don't include get and run that for you. But what the get method does, which you'll find on most of these new classes that we've added, is that the class itself, typically they have other attributes in them that you don't need. If you run the get function, that'll strip all of them out and return just an object of what a SkySiv API object or model usually looks like. Say you wanted to grab the JSON for it, you could just run get, assign it to a variable, and then deal with that how you like. So we'll just pass in the model that we've created, and that'll set the model. You might then want to do API object functions and run a solve. So you could do solve, model solve, And then you could do, I think it's type, and that would be linear. For this case, probably want to double check that one. Let's go back to that request object, functions and model.solve, analysis type. There you go. So that was incorrect. Analysis type linear. So I'm not going to actually run that. We'll just do one more, which will be saving the file. So we'll go functions add, and we'll go file, save, and then we're going to need to provide 2 keys, I believe, and they will be the path and the name. So we'll go to S3D file, name and path, and so here we'll go name of the file, and we'll just call this npm demo, and then we'll have path, and we'll put this in the API folder. This is my API folder on Skysiv. So in fact, we might even go API npm, and then that way it's just sort of grouped together a bit better. Okay, so now we're going to need to create this model that we haven't actually created yet. I mean, we could run node now and just see what happens anyway. Now, obviously, that's not going to work because we haven't actually invoked the request. So we'll go ao.request and open. There's a callback function, what you want to do to handle the response, and there's some options there, which are optional, see by the question mark. But function, we need to include a callback, which let's just call it callback. And we'll say const callback using some ES6 syntax here is equal to takes the response, and then we can go console log res.response.message, and we pass this callback function in here. For those of you that aren't too familiar with JavaScript, that could also be written function callback. That could be written like this in the same thing. So now if we run this, we will get one error. So nodes should not have fewer than one property, limit 1. Okay, so that's at least good. We know that things are working. So we can just start looking at building out this model. We'll just close that for now. And let's go maybe up in here and do it. So API object can all be set after the model's created. And let's start with model.nodes. So as you hit the dot, period, full stop, whatever you want to call it, then you'll see all the different properties of the model class. So one of them is nodes. So we'll type in nodes. And then once you click that, you'll see the methods. So add and open parentheses, and you'll get a description of what it's expecting. So we're going to have, remember we're working with Z as vertical, so Y is just always going to be 0. For the first node, it'll be at the origin anyway. And then we'll create another one, and we'll put this at x equals 5, and then x equals 10. So that's sort of the bottom row. Let's just separate these a bit, and we'll then put the next one, which would be at 2.5, and then we might just go 2.5 up as well. So 2.5, 2.5. That next one would be 2.5, but we'll put that at 7.5. And then the last one would be at the apex, which will be at 5 and 5. So if I just hit save, that'll trigger my formatter. And then now we can start looking at adding some members. So I might also just add some node IDs here. Whoops, it's Python comment. So we'll go 1, 2, we'll call it 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we can come down here and add some members. Might also just put in a bunch of equals there to help break this up into make it a bit more readable. So members, we're going to need model. There'll be a few of these. Members.add, and we need node A and node B. So we're going to go from the first node, which is that comment we put next to that first node, down to through to the second node, and we'll give it a section ID of 1, which we haven't created sections yet. We'll do that shortly. Fixity A and fixity B, we'll just leave them. They'll default to fixed, which might not be desirable, but for the sake of this demonstration, it's okay. So we can leave them out because they're optional, but these 3 parameters are required. So once we've gone from node 1 to node 2, and then we'll go from node 2 to node 3, and then we're going to go from, let's say, node 1 again to node 4, and then we're going to go from node 4 to node 2, and then we'll go from node 2 to 5, and then we will go from node 4 to 5. Now it's likely that I get one of these wrong, but we can fix that up later. Then we'll go from node 4 to 6 and go 6 to 4, and that should create the apex. So for now, that might not be right. We'll check it soon. Let's not do supports. Let's actually just fill out a few other things that we need here though. Put a point load in. Else? Going to need a section and then a material. So we can knock these out pretty quick. We'll go to model.sections.add custom or library. I'm just going to pick one from the library. You'll see the path, which is an array of strings. There's an example here of what that looks like. And to save you the pain of having to look this up, because the capitalization and spaces, they all do matter, we've included a SkyCiv.sections, and that's just a massive object of key values. So you can just start typing in something like Australian steel, I want 350 89 SHS. So that's what I wanted there, 89 by 5 SHS. I can click that and that'll fill out that key, and that key will be equal to an array of what you're sort of seeing there. So now we've created a section. We give it a material ID of 1. We haven't created a material yet, so let's create a material. Materials add, and we can pick one from the list here. There's also add custom, and if you open that, you can put in all the custom parameters. So we'll just use one of the default ones, which is in add, and we can do open structural steel, and that's the material. Then we'll go to a point load. We'll go model.pointloads.add, and this will be located on a node at node 6 and with a, say, -5 kilonewton Z magnitude. So the trick, there is a bit of a trick here. If you're applying it to a member, it will still be asking you for a node ID, so you'll need to pass in null for that. So if we said member and it said, what's the member ID, you can see it's asking for the node ID first, so you can just put null and then put your member ID of 3, 4, whatever. But for our case, we're going to put in a node. We know the ID is 6. That's the 6th node that we added. Member ID, null, position, null, X magnitude, 0, Y magnitude, 0, Z magnitude, -5, and we'll just add it to a load group called load group 1. Very exciting. So we'll then add some supports, model.supports.add. You'll get information here saying what node do you want to add it to, 1. Now we'll make it fixed in all translations and let it rotate about the y-axis. So that looks like this. So fixed, 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 and then fixed, released in the y, and fixed in the Z. So if you're not sure what this code looks like, you can click this here, which will just open up this page to the S3D model and get you down to this bit. So this just gives you a quick explanation. If you're new to engineering, you might not be familiar with this. 6-digit or 6-letter code, first 3 being translation and the second 3 being rotation. We've added that. There's a few other parameters there for if you're using a Spring, but we're not, so we'll just add another one as well to node 3 with the same. So that's our model now. Let's run that and see what happens. So if I hit Control and the tilde, then I can hit node index.js and that'll run, and we can see if there's anything wrong with the model. I'm not very confident these member numbers will line up correctly, but we'll see. So once we get that back, it gives you a link here. We can go open. There you go. So we got something wrong with 5 to 3, and we probably duplicated too many members there, but let's go for 5 to 3 and 6 to 5. So we'll go 5 to 3 and 6 to 5. Now I'm not including the analyze function yet because I wasn't that confident that the model was correct. Doing this in a bit of a hurry. Now once that's finished running, we can jump back over here and just hit refresh. And now we've got a truss. So we've got our supports, we've got a point load, solve up here. Yeah, so obviously I've accidentally put in a few extra members there. I'll just hit repair here, but you can go back to the code there and you could take out member 8. It looked like was the issue, so in fact let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. So I've gone 6 and 4 and then 4 and 6 above it, so that would be the issue. We can run that again and click this, open, get rid of that one, and that's looking a bit better. We'll hit solve. Everything's solved without an issue, and we can have a look at the displacement. If I hold S and scroll, we get some sort of see what the shape takes with the deflection. We could have a look at some axial forces. That's sort of how easy it is now to create an S3D model using the API and our JavaScript npm package. We've also created it for a pip package, which is the same thing but for Python. So if you're using Python, just have a look for that video as well. We're kind of creating the same truss, except I think it turned out a little bit messier than this one. So that's about it. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.